Jesse Wells is one of the best young musicians in Kentucky that I know of.
I had met both Jesse Wells and Michael Garvin when they were very young. Jesse was 12, Michael was 16 when I met him. They are like sponges. Every musical thing they hear just goes in and it stays there for a little while, and then as it is squeezed out, it's something different and it is theirs. And yet it is still the traditional music.
Michael Garvin's a good friend and fellow fiddler and one of my favorite musicians. Michael's been lucky enough to be around the great musicians through his grandfather and being around this music his whole life, and just a wonderful old-time mountain fiddler. He's studied all the great old recordings and actually been around the great old-time fiddlers.
Well, Michael Garvin is one of my favorite fiddlers. I've really admired his playing for a lot of years because I remember Michael was always hanging around playing the guitar, and his granddaddy was an old-time banjo player that's on this anthology of Kentucky banjo music that Mark Wilson and I did. But I'd never heard Michael play the fiddle before until one time out at JP's at a party. He pulled out his fiddle and he just amazed me, the stuff he was playing.
Music is Michael's life. That's his family and his friends, and everything centered in his life is around these old fiddle tunes and just music in general. He works on the old instruments, takes them apart and puts them back together, takes bows. He's really, that's the essence of Michael Garvin, really, is the music of this area. And I think JP was a huge influence on Michael, just being so open to teaching him tunes and working with him and just opening his door up anytime for any of us to come and learn music from him.
This is a tune called Martha Campbell, and it's strictly accredited to be a Kentucky tune.
Something that's really wonderful to watch these days is how many youngsters are getting onto the music, from little kids on up, and people who have come into it as teenagers that are doing real well, like Michael Garvin and Rossi.
I met Rossi Clark at least 4 years ago. John Herod called and said, "There is a little girl that you have to meet, and her name is Rossi, and she's going to be at Berea, so you be there and meet her." And my husband and I went, and there was this tiny little girl. She has grown in the last 4 years up. She was already fiddling. John was already impressed with her. Several of the other musicians that I talked with there we were.
I've been a kind of mentor to her. I've been one of those connections, and so have a lot of other people. I don't think any fiddle player learns just from one person, and you really should learn from all of them.
Here's a song I learned from Paul David Smith, and it's called Rock Andy. John Herod was my very first teacher when I came to Cowan Creek Mountain Music School for the first time, and he just kind of got me really interested in the music and on how to do it, and told me that I could do it, and he's been encouraging me ever since.
Rossi Clark is 14 years old, and we just finished an apprenticeship grant this year, but she's been playing since she was 4 years old. I met her at Cowan Creek about 6 years ago. She was a little skinny girl wearing red cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, and she was all dressed up, and she wasn't big enough to be playing this fiddle, but she was playing a full-size fiddle at that point that had belonged to her granddaddy, and I could tell right away that she was serious.
Yeah, I'm really lucky to be able to learn from people like Paul Smith and John Herod and Roger Cooper and a lot of these people, because the music's dying, and I want to be able to keep the heritage alive and pass it on to more people and to kids younger and older than me. I want them to know that they shouldn't be ashamed of where they come from. They should know that Kentucky has more than what they think, and part of that is their music. And it's a part of the heritage that I don't think should die, and I want to be able to pass that on.